Mr. McTigue, how did New Zealand manage to implement the state administration reform?
New Zealand was in crisis and it had to change. And both political parties recognised that. And fortunately, the party of the centre-left and the party of the centre-right, who shared government over that period of time, agreed on a common agenda. They were going to put the reforms in place. Did they sit down and negotiate it? No. But as one government followed another, they picked up the threads of the things that still needed to be done.
In which direction would you suggest to steer the surplus of employees from public sector if the private sector is too weak to take them on?
Well, the whole reason for doing reforms is to actually make the private sector stronger. One of the things that you're trying to do with these reforms is to move more of the national economic pie into the private sector where the wealth is really created. So at the same time as you're doing that, you're helping to stimulate that private sector. With that confidence that comes from more growth in the economy, then those employers are prepared to pick up additional employees. If you measured it in terms of the number of employees that were employed by the government, we decreased the number of employees by 66%. If you looked at it in terms of how much of national GDP was consumed by the government, it dropped from 44% to 27%. So they were nervous, but if you had done a good job on the research and the design, you were able to give them some confidence that they would be able to be redeployed quite quickly. We were generous in the terms that we gave to people when they were separated from the public sector. Many of them got very significant quantities of severance money.
New Zealand had also implemented reform in the state subsidies segment. What was the motive behind it, and how did New Zealand manage to take subsidies away from farmers but still kept agricultural production up?
The subsidies probably impede production. They lower it. And why is that? Because subsidies create dependency. And dependency means that you kill off innovation and creativity. So if we looked at, say, the dairy industry in New Zealand, and we took all of the subsidies away in 1985, at that time dairying produced 35 products from milk. Last year New Zealand dairy farmers marketed 2,200 products from milk. That's innovation and creativity, and it also means that you make more money, you get higher prices, and you're able to compete with markets where those markets are being protected by tariffs.
Croatia is evidently in need of the public administration reform. How to implement the reform and stay in power?
In designing the reforms, you also look at what are you going to do with the people that are displaced? How are they going to be absorbed back into the private sector? And what might you need to do to actually help ease that? That needs to be planned out before, so that once you start the execution can be carried out in a reasonably short period of time. Short period of time is 6 to 9, maybe 10, 12 months, but not 2 or 3 years.
Mr. McTigue, thank you very much for this interview.